we will have Marcy kick us off. Marcy Jasper.
Great, thanks, Anne. Good morning and welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I am Marcy Jasper. I am a business consultant with Vocational Rehabilitation Services. I have my counterpart, Daisha Van Alstyne, with State Services for the Blind that we'll be talking here a little bit later. But again, welcome to Minnesota's Technology Workforce Month, the month of April. It's all about raising awareness and breaking down barriers to tech careers. So the governor has proclaimed April 2021 as Technology Workforce Month in Minnesota, an opportunity to draw attention to the critical importance of the state's technology workforce and its importance to the Minnesota's economy. While the importance of their roles have been highlighted during the pandemic, IT workers have been in demand in the marketplace for a long time and will continue to be in the future. So the state of Minnesota is actually home to about 110,000 people that are currently working in IT occupations. That's about 3.8% of the total population in Minnesota, while the national average for such occupations is about 3.4%. So that means that IT work is more concentrated in Minnesota than in the nation as a whole. The Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development Employment Outlook data points to a continued trend toward well above average growth in demand for IT workers in Minnesota. DEED projects employment in computer occupations to grow 10.5% between 2018 and 2028, while the average growth of all occupations in Minnesota is only 4.7%. So because of the high demand for IT workers, wages for workers in these occupations are higher than for most occupations in Minnesota. In fact, the median hourly wage for IT occupations was $42.71 an hour in 2021. That's over $20 an hour higher than the median for all occupations in the state. Next slide, Ann. So as you can see, the Tech Workforce Month has a lot of resources and events, has something for everyone. So lots of different events, as you can see on the slides, and many different resources for career seekers, for employers, for providers. And you can find all the Tech Month resources at careerforcemn.com/techmonth. Next slide. Lastly is just a list of current events from today until the end of the month that are happening. And again, jumping on careerforcemn.com/techmonth virtual events is where you can find all of these events for the rest of the month. So today, what we will be doing is we will have a couple different speakers. We will have John Bradyhoff talk about assistive technology in the workplace. And he is a assistive technology specialist with Vocational Rehab Services. We have Sean Wallen, a technologist with SSB speak. And then we will get an employer perspective. We have a couple different employers from United Healthcare that will be talking about the employer perspective when it comes to assistive technology. So we thank you guys all for being willing to present on this important topic today. So next, I will turn it over to Daisha Van Alstyne, who will talk about some polls.
Hi there. So today we're going to do two polls. The first is going to tell us who's participating here today, and then the next one is going to talk about what you know about assistive technology. So Anne, you want to pull up the polls for us? It looks like we have a lot of workforce development staff here, a lot of employers today. Welcome. All right, so we have, it looks like quite a bit of employers, workforce development staff. Let's go ahead and do the next poll. So the next poll is, do you have an assistive technology device that you use? All right. So it looks like 59 or 67% have said that no, they do not have an assistive technology device that they use. Just know if you have a smartphone, you have an assistive technology device. So unless you're using a flip phone or have no cell phone at all, you actually do. There's a lot of assistive technology devices that we don't even know we have. And that's where John and Sean today are going to tell you a little bit more. Marcy?
Thanks, Stacia. Again, just want to introduce John Bradyhoff from Vocational Rehab Services. So take it away, John.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm John from VRS, Assistive Technology Specialist. Next slide, please. Vocational Rehabilitation Services and State Services for the Blind are state employment service agencies that serve people with disabilities, and both are divisions of the Department of Employment and Economic Development. And we are partners in the Career Force System, which is formerly the Minnesota Workforce Center. And we have 50 Career Force locations in the state, and our programs can serve youth and adults any age 14 plus. Next slide, please. I'll start out with the definition of assistive technology. Assistive technology is any item, piece of equipment, or product system, whether acquired commercially off the shelf, modified, or customized, that is used to increase, maintain, or improve the functional capabilities of individuals with disabilities. Next slide. And there's more to assistive technology than just the device. You don't want to hand a person a device and say, good luck. There is a definition of assistive technology service. Any service that directly assists a person with a disability in the selection, acquisition, or use of an assistive technology device is a service. And these services can include an assistive technology assessment, training on the device. It's very important that someone's trained properly on the device, they know how to use it, and they can be productive with it. Set up an implementation of the device, and follow up to make sure the device is meeting the needs and accomplishing the goals of what the person needs to do. Next slide. There are many theories for how to approach assistive technology. If you're from an education background, you might have heard of the SET theory, which is a student, environment, tasks, and tools. There's also a HETI theory, which is human, environment, and technology interface. And there's other occupational therapy theories as well. But a common one is the HAT theory, which is the human activity assistive technology theory. And this theory assists with understanding the place of assistive technology in the lives of people with disabilities. There are 4 components to this theory. The human includes the physical, cognitive, and emotional elements, and the focus must be on the individual using the technology, focus on their skills, their abilities, and limitations. The activity includes self-care, productivity, leisure, and defines the goal of the assistive technology system. Performing work activities independently can lead to success in employment. The assistive technology is an extrinsic enabler because it produces or provides the basis by which human performance is improved by the presence of a disability. And the context is the environment in which the assistive technology will be used. And then the assistive technology can further be broken down into some further components. The human technology interface is the interaction between the person and the device. This interaction can go either direction. For example, a keyboard can allow the person to input into the computer, and the monitor can give them feedback. The processor is often a computer to control and process data to accomplish the task. And the environmental interface is the link between the device and the environment, which supports seeing, hearing, and feeling. And the activity outputs are communication, mobility, manipulating objects, and cognition. And consideration of each of these components and their interaction is necessary for the design, selection, implementation, and evaluation of the appropriate assistive technologies. Next slide, please. And you may have looked at that heady model and said, wow, that seems like a lot. There is a more simplified way to look at it. You can look at the person's abilities, focus on the person, and then focus on the work tasks that they need to do, and then identify gaps and try to merge that together. For example, say somebody's not able to type into the computer because of a upper extremity limitation. So you look at, okay, not able to type, you're focusing on them. And then the task is they need to type into the computer. Well, they don't have the physical ability. So maybe some voice recognition or something would allow them to input into the computer. And you can look at that no matter what the task is. Next slide, please. And assistive technology has a continuum. There's no technology to low technology to mid-tech tools. And then on the higher end is high-tech tools. Often you can start simply with low technology. They're very simple things that can be implemented, often low cost. Assistive technology does not have to cost a lot. So some examples of low-tech tools are maybe pencil grips to hold a pen or pencil easier, highlighters to be able to see print. It could be as simple as a ruler just to keep your place on a line when you're reading a page. And then some middle tech tools are books on tape, talking spell check, dictionaries, word processing, tape recorders, adaptive eating utensils, and then some high-tech tools, which are more costly, are like text readers, voice recognition, environmental control devices, AAC devices, and software for manipulation of objects. Next slide, please. And there are several areas of assistive technology. And I'll just give a couple examples of each. Augmentative and alternative communication is often communications devices for those that don't have the ability to speak. So say someone with CP or maybe have had a stroke, they're not able to talk. This gives them the ability to input into a device, and then it gives out a voice that speaks for them. So some examples of an AAC device could be the Tobii Dynabox or Prolo to Go on an iPad. Yeah, aids for daily living is any tool to assist a person with hygiene, grooming, eating, and dressing. Sometimes they need help to be able to accomplish those tasks. Computer access, this is very common in employment. This can include things like Microsoft accessibility features, which are built into the Microsoft operating system. You just have to go in and turn them on. Voice input, such as Dragon Naturally Speaking, and alternative mouse options. If you're not able to use a standard mouse, you have to move around on the desk, and that requires a shoulder movement. So maybe if a rotator cuff injury or something, maybe a trackball mouse would work so that stays stationary on the desk, and you just move the trackball with your hand to move the cursor. And then there's other mouse options like the Vivo mouse or a Smile mouse that are head activated and use facial expressions with the webcam. Or maybe someone has tremors. There's a device called a Steady mouse, which keeps the tremor from making the mouse go all over. And then there's a number of alternative keyboards. There's ergonomic keyboards to help have your hands in a more neutral position to avoid pain. There's one-handed keyboards, which are smaller, that can have the keys more condensed so someone can type with them. There's large keys if someone has trouble getting their finger on a smaller key. The large keys will allow them to have a bigger target to press down. And there's also colored keys if someone's not unable to see the writing on the keys, they can come in different colors. Learning and cognition, there's lots of assistive technology in this area. Some examples would be text-to-speech programs that convert text to audio by performing optical character recognition. A couple examples would be programs called Read and Write, Kurzweil 3000, ClaroRead or Natural Reader. Note-taking applications fall into this area. It could be as simple as an audio recorder or a LiveScribe Smart Pen, or a computer software that's called Sonos Audio Note Taker. All these devices can record audio and assist somebody with taking notes if they have inability to handwrite. And also word prediction programs can assist with typing by cutting down on keystrokes. A couple examples of a word prediction program would be Co-Writer 7 or WordQ. And you type a couple letters on these programs, and then a box would come up with like 5 choices, and you just hit the number of the word that you want. So it cuts down significantly on keystrokes. Environmental controls. This allows someone to have access to thermostats, lighting, window blinds, or door openers in their home and environment. And then home or worksite modifications can include ergonomic chairs or ergonomic equipment, adjustable height desks. If someone can't sit for too long, they start to have pain. Adjustable height desk you can raise up so you can alternate between sitting and standing. And then there's also carts that can assist folks with moving materials if you're unable to carry materials over a distance, or lifts if you're unable to lift materials from floor to working height. Telephone headsets can fall in this area, and one-handed tools for some examples. And then seating and positioning and wheelchair or mobility aids often kind of merge together. It's very important for someone to be seated and positioned properly so that they're able to be productive in their work and access the tools that they need to use. But this area can include manual and powered wheelchairs, scooters, canes, walkers. And sometimes wheelchairs can have seat elevators on them that can raise the person's seat up to a level so they can access materials and equipment and things that are at a higher level. Visual aids, Sean will talk a little bit about those next, but a couple of examples are Zoomtext, Kurzweil 3000, JAWS, and Dolphin. And some hearing examples could be captioning, hearing aids or amplification, or strobe lights. And then transportation can include adaptive driving equipment and vehicle access. Next slide. And if you have no idea where to start with assistive technology, you have an employee that you're working with, you can go to a website called the Job Accommodations Network. If you go to askjan.org, it's a very good website. They have an A to Z listing of disabilities, and I'll try to bring it up here on the screen here. Whoops. So there's information on this website for employers, for individuals. Here's the A to Z listing of disabilities. You can do an accommodation search. The A to Z listing of disabilities will list any disability. And you can look it up by disability, by limitation, work-related function, by topic, or accommodations. So I'll look up, let's look up multiple sclerosis. You can look up MS. And it tells a little bit about the condition, and then accommodating employees with that condition. And then it has questions to consider. What limitations is the employee experiencing? How do those limitations affect the employee and their job performance? And then it breaks it down further into accommodations ideas by limitation. So say, for example, they're having executive functioning deficits, you could go into that area. And then it breaks it down, has a whole bunch of ideas, and you can click on any idea and get more information about that from manufacturers, and learn more about what the assistive technology is. So this is a very, very good website to at least have as a starting point. And next slide, please. And then the last item is the Minnesota STAR program, which is a system of technology to achieve results. And that program is a device loan and lending library. They can do device demonstrations. So for example, say you wanted to look at specialized keyboards, you're not sure what would work for the person, they can loan out devices for a period of 30 days so that they can be tried out. And then if it works for the person, then you know, hey, that's the one. If it doesn't work, then you're not out any money. You can try out a different device. So it's a good way to try devices before a purchase is made. Next screen, please. And then I'm available anytime for questions. So here's my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me at any time by email or telephone, and I'd be happy to help any way that I can in providing some ideas or providing some advice. Thank you.
Next, we would like to introduce Sean Wallen. Sean Wallen is an assistive technology specialist with State Services for the Blind. He works with individuals and their counselors, and then also works with businesses to come up with solutions to barriers that people that are blind, deafblind, or low vision might be having on the job. Welcome, Sean.
Good morning. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay. If you go back to the power slide, please. All right. Well, my name is Sean Wallen. I'm an assistive technology specialist with Minnesota State Services for the Blind. I actually have 23 years experience working in this industry and also working with employers, everyone from top businesses all the way up to Fortune 500 companies within Minnesota to help find solutions basically for assistive technology accommodations related to low vision, blind, and deafblind. So whether you have an employee who is losing their vision, or maybe you have a job applicant who's looking for a position that has a visual disability. I'm a part of a team that has 5 assistive technology specialists, and we have a great network of knowledge. So if you questions related to low vision, blindness, or deafblind technology, please feel free to reach out to me. My contact information will be at the end. You can go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So one thing I wanted to briefly talk about is basically what Services for the Blind offers. Our mission is basically to help people who are visually impaired keep or maintain their employment. Basically, we provide courtesy services for employers. So like I said, if you're hiring someone that has a visual disability, or else if you have an employee who is losing their vision, we are here to help. We can provide courtesy services that include accessibility testing, doing some type of skill assessment, or also basically a technology evaluation. Talking about what is assistive technology, as John mentioned, it can be anything between a highlighter to even having a job accommodation where you have somebody else do another task for you. But one thing that's great, and on the poll that we did earlier, the question about do you own or currently use an assistive technology device? And as Daisha mentioned, everyone, if you're on a computer right now, or you have a smartphone or a smartwatch for that matter, you're using an assistive technology device. With the latest advancements in Windows and Apple operating systems, there have been great advancements, and there are great included technology that I'll demonstrate briefly to show you that there's some great assistive technology at our hands already without requiring extra purchases, without requiring going out to the store and buying anything. So next I'm going to do an introduction to low vision, blind, and deafblind technology. This is very brief, and there's many products on the market. I'm going to highlight some of the ones that I've worked with mostly over my 23-year career. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen here. All right. So one thing I wanted to show people here is just briefly some of the low vision, blind, and deafblind technology that I work with. I'm going to go ahead and change my view here to be able to make things bigger here. So one thing I wanted to mention, as I discussed earlier, with advancements of the Microsoft operating system, there are some great low vision tools that, or even blind low vision tools that you can access to be able to basically try some things out. There are obviously a lot of third-party commercial software available that can also assist individuals. But here is some of this access, how you can access some free tools to at least try. So whether you're struggling with vision or else you're totally blind, Microsoft has great tools built into the operating system that you can access. So for example, if I were just to hit the Windows key and the letter U on my computer, it's going to pull up what's called the Ease of Access Center for Windows 10. Now, just a little inside information here. I'm using an insider preview version of Microsoft Windows 10 and also Office 365. What that does is it gives me a little bit more advanced features than other users have available right now, because I have access to newer updates than the average user does. So some of these options in here might be different for you. But basically, like if you're like me and you have aging eyes and you want to make print a little bit bigger, you can go within here, within the display settings, and you can actually make that print up to 225% larger. I'm not going to hit apply, because what that will do is on my dialog box and everything you see on the screen here, the print will be much bigger. It may or may not require me to restart my computer, so I'm not going to select that option now. Another great option I have is, for example, like me, I have trouble seeing that mouse pointer. So hopefully you guys are seeing this okay, but I like to have a nice visual green mouse, and I like to have that mouse pointer a little bit bigger than a standard size, just so I can visually track where that mouse pointer is. Another great feature that I mentioned is the Windows Magnifier. Windows Magnifier is a tool that you can use with the Windows key and a plus key. And basically it allows me to magnify my screen up to 1600% of the screen size, or 16x. So I can really zoom in and magnify and make the screen easier for me to read. And as I move around the mouse, I can easily move around and see where the clock is, for example, and also where my other programs are. So once again, this is another great tool that's built into Windows 10 and Windows 7. Another great tool that other people find helpful, and is something I always encourage people who are losing their vision to the point that they need something to read to them. But there's something called Windows Narrator.
Settings window, use narrator. Narrate, scan.
Shut this off real quickly. I just wanted to briefly show you that it basically is a screen reading program that allows someone with no vision or very low vision to access the screen with synthesized speech to read to you.
Narrator guide, what's new?
So I'm gonna go ahead and shut that off now, just so it doesn't cause too much problem here.
Exiting narrator.
So those are some of just the great built-in information. If you just Google Windows 10 accessibility or Windows 7 accessibility, you will find these tools built into Windows 10. If you're on a Mac platform, the Mac platform also has the same great built-in tools. They call it Zoom, which is a magnifier for the Mac operating system. And you can go to settings, and under general and accessibility, you will find those settings to turn on the both the screen reader and also the magnifier for Apple. The third-party solutions, I wanted to talk about the most common ones that I use in workforce areas or people with employment. There's a product called Zoomtext Magnifier. And basically this is a screen magnification program that allows a user to magnify the screen up to 60 times magnification. The major difference that I will tell you between this and the paid versions of the software and versus the built-in accessibility features is, I'll actually show you here. I'm gonna go ahead and start up a program called Zoomtext Fusion, and I'll explain what this is in a second. With the screen magnification program, this allows me to magnify up to 60 times, as I mentioned. But the major difference is that it has clarity compared to the built-in features, which pixelate. So with this program, as I go ahead and magnify, it's going to allow me to see very smooth print. And my computer just crashed, so hopefully, well, it's not crashed yet, but it's Uh-oh. All right, at this point, I don't know if I'm connected or not. Great.
Alt Control Delete.
All right.
Blank.
Am I still on? All right, I survived. Oh, there it goes again.
Task Manager.
Let me find if I can quickly get out of this here and end this program.
Alt Control Delete.
So as Sean's
Am I
working
still
on
on?
that. Yes, you are. Yep. Yep.
All
As
right.
Sean's working on that. Feel free to, like, as you're having questions, to plug things into the chat. I know some of this technology takes a lot to kind of to implement. So, so Sean, do you think you got it going on?
Yes, 1 second here. I'm going to close Murphy's Law. When you
Task
start with
Manager.
no technology, it
Task
always
Manager.
fails.
Task Manager main.
All right, 1 second here. All right, everything good now? All right, so I won't demonstrate that software, but basically what I
Page
was,
2.
oh, geez.
Low vision.
Is that speech not interfering at all?
Yes, a little bit.
A little bit, okay. All right. So what I was trying to demonstrate is a product called Zoomtext Fusion. Oh, here my computer is going goofy again. All right. So I was trying to demonstrate Zoomtext Fusion, which basically is a screen magnification software that also provides screen reading assistance with the JAWS screen reader. Basically, it's designed for people who are, as I say down here, ideal user is somebody who is low vision, who is also experiencing additional vision loss or has a progressive eye condition where your vision loss will be to the point where sometimes you're going to need to depend on a screen reader to be able to read to you instead of trying to visually access the screen. A next program that I'm going to talk about is called JAWS for Windows, and this is designed for somebody who is very low vision to the point that they can't use the screen for very long, or else somebody who is totally blind, or else deafblind. This technology does support the ability to have Braille, for example, and I do have what's called a physical Braille display. Hopefully it'll show up with my virtual background, but this is a Braille device basically that I can use with the JAWS screen reader to be able to not only hear information read to me, but if I'm a Braille reader, I can actually read along in Braille. This is commonly used, for example, in a call center situation where you may have a customer on the phone, you may have a computer talking to you, and you might need Braille support to be able to scan through information or skim through information quicker. Another great free resource that I try, I do have prices listed here, for example. For example, the JAWS software as a business owner or as someone that's an employee needing the software, this software is very expensive. It can cost up to $1,600 in order to get a JAWS license to be able to access a computer as a visually impaired person. But as I mentioned, there are free alternatives. So as I mentioned, the Windows Narrator for using the built-in Windows 10 feature. There's also a program called NVDA, which is non-visual desktop access, which is a free screen reader that you can download. The great thing about this program is it's very similar to JAWS in operation, and it's also free. That's the greatest thing. But it also can be run on low-powered computers and also from a USB thumb drive. So if you're in an employer site or you're working at a job and your computer is locked down with administrator rights, you can run this software just off a thumb drive. So for more information, you can access or just Google NVDA screen reader and you'll get more information on that. Next thing I wanted to show is briefly just a couple of options. As I mentioned, we are a state agency here to assist employers. But basically, if you wanted to find some more information on the products that I discussed here today, you can check out Freedom Scientific. They're makers of both software JAWS and Zoomtext and Zoomtext Fusion, but they also make a great array of hardware devices for basically being able to see things as a low vision user. There's devices, for example, called video magnifiers that you can use for magnifying print material up to 50 times the normal size and with great clarity. They also have handheld units that you can use on the go. So there's basically portable magnifiers that allow me to have a handheld magnifier where I can access print material very easily. I don't know if this will show up on the screen or not. Nope. But basically this handheld device I can actually use when I'm shopping. I can use that if I'm going to a file cabinet to look up some print material. Great tool that you can have visually. This is the website for the NVDA here. This is once again just a brief description of what, or look at what a CCTV is. And this is a video magnifier. Right now I'm showing on the screen the HumanWare website with the Reveal 16 magnifier. Like I said, this is a portable option that you can take with you to magnify print material. Next, as I mentioned, there's a whole line of Braille devices that you can use as a low vision user or a blind user. One is called a Braille Sense that you can use as a note taker. It basically has its own operating system, so you can go to a meeting, turn it on, take notes, browse the internet, check email, for example. Future-wise, there's many things I can talk about future-wise. One of the coolest advancements in technology and assistive technology is virtual reality glasses that allow you to, as a low vision user, to have information read to you and also magnify you right at your forehead. Basically, when you wear this device, you can read print material. You can have information on a screen read to you, for example. Great tool for, once again, a great area that's developing day by day. Next is a product called the OrCam, and this is once again another device that you can literally take this device here and you can point it to anything with print and it will read it to you using headphones or else a built-in speaker. So there's a lot of great options that you can use as a visually impaired person. And we can go back to the slide now. I'm going to stop sharing. All right, next slide, please. So as I briefly talked about here, I covered a little bit of the things of low-tech options. As I mentioned, there's great lighting for lighting situations, and do advise people to look into the new smart bulbs. The new smart bulbs are great for having cool white colors or warm white colors that you can use to brighten up work areas or else task lighting. We talked about screen magnification. I briefly talked about video magnifiers that can be used to handle print material. There are tablet camera solutions that are basically using tablet PCs with portable cameras that you can use for doing distance viewing. And if you're in a meeting, for example, or else viewing printed material. I briefly talked about the VR headset solutions. We can go to the next slide, please. I'm not going to demonstrate the technology. So what is the secret to success in employment? One thing I wanted to get on my soapbox real quickly about is the fact, to me as an assistive technology specialist, my greatest success is working with companies where we can build a team around an employee or a potential employee, where we can find solutions for you. Some things aren't cheap, some things are very cheap, but as I mentioned, we do provide courtesy services where we can come in and help your business or your employee or that you're working with, and we can basically try to find some solutions for you. I work with a great team of assistive technology specialists, and if we don't know the answer, I will find somebody that will know the answer. But basically, as an employee, as someone looking for work as an employer, have some patience and work as a team. We can definitely accomplish great things. But the greatest thing, like I said, as I mentioned, is having a team where I can work with somebody that's hiring the person, work with someone that's in IT maybe that has some time that they can devote to curing solutions. Unfortunately, I work with people who have been vision loss basically due to medication reactions, people who have been in accidents, people who have woken up overnight and been blind in the morning. It's scary to think that you would lose your job, and I worked with many people who have quit their job not knowing that there's accommodations that can be made in place. So please feel free to reach out to the resources, including myself, John, the JAN Network, and also the Minnesota STAR program that can help you with assistive technology. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Sean. All right, next we are going to move into the employer perspective. With many of you being employers on this call, we wanted to give you an insight into having an employer tell you about the assistive technology that they're used within their company. So Mitra, if you want to start us off, that would be great.
Thanks, Marcy. Thanks for having me today, guys. It's fun to see a lot of familiar faces. So just a little bit about me. I've been a medical accommodations consultant at United Health Group for a little bit over 2 years now. My role as an accommodation consultant is to assist employees with medical or disability related needs and just explore a variety of accommodation options that'll help them perform their essential job functions. So this can range from sit-stand workstations to assistive technology such as JAWS, Dragon, virtual interpreters, cart services, Purple, or any other form of accommodation that may assist the employee with performing their role. Our team is comprised of subject matter experts whose primary role is to help explore and facilitate ADA accommodations. So at United Health Group, we just want to ensure that inclusion is top of mind and that our employees have the tools and support they need on the job so they can be successful. We review all of our accommodations on a case-by-case basis, and we just want to ensure that we're meeting everybody's individual needs. And another part of my role is to partner on a variety of different hiring pilots, working with local VRs, Marcy, and everybody to identify their amazing talent. And also identify accommodation needs in a timely fashion. So again, you know, keeping inclusion and accommodation top of mind. So today, I just wanted to provide a high-level overview from the employer perspective on our accommodations process that's utilized within the enterprise to facilitate our requests. United Health Group's policy is to comply with the law under the reasonable accommodation policy. This demonstrates our company's commitment and legal obligation to comply with all federal and state laws. Just living our values of compassion and diversity in regard to hiring and retaining qualified individuals with disability. So under the ADA and the reasonable accommodation policy within UHG, employees are able and encouraged to request accommodations when they have a disability that impacts them in the workplace. So, you know, the reasonable accommodation should be thought of as a tool to assist them, you know, with performing the essential functions of their job. And again, this, you know, isn't just assistive technology. Accommodations can include things such as, you know, additional training opportunities, working from home, or even excusing occasional intermittent health-related absences. So at United Health Group, if at any time an employee has a need for an accommodation, they're encouraged to immediately contact HR Direct, where they'll be guided on next steps to make a request. Once an employee makes a request for an accommodation, the employee is notified of paperwork that we would need, you know, to be completed by their medical provider to substantiate the need for their accommodation. After this step, the employee is provided 30 days, you know, to submit that paperwork for documentation. And once we receive that documentation, a total absence management or an accommodations consultant will contact the employee to assist with reviewing and responding to their accommodation request. And this process at our enterprise is called the interactive process. So the interactive process is where all parties, you know, commit to engaging in dialogue just to determine what can be reasonably accommodated for the employee. So essentially, you know, the accommodation decision will be made after we analyze the essential job functions of the employee's job and whether the accommodation is reasonable or might cause a business hardship. once an accommodation decision has been made, it's important to know, we document that response in writing, and we'll always provide a copy to the employee, to document that. So they'll always have that as a resource to reference if they ever need anything. And if at any time the employee's needs, medical needs or business needs change, they can always reference, that response or contact us immediately so we can review it for them. We really try to ensure that our process here is seamless for employees, and we encourage both the employee and leadership to reference this process at any time, just again, to make it easy as possible. And if the employees ever have questions about their accommodations or our process, we're always encouraging them to contact us directly. So again, if there's ever additional needs for accommodation, we're always going to be there to help contact them within 24 hours, making sure that, our centralized process within United is always a really positive experience and easy, where their accommodation needs are always a priority. So thanks again for letting me join you all today and allowing me to share our process with you. Now I'll turn it over to one of my colleagues, JP Jamis, Principal Accessibility Engineer within Optum-Tech, who is a very successful leader and also is an AT user within our enterprise. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Mitra. Hi, everyone. My name is JP Jamis, and I'm a Principal Digital Accessibility Engineer. I know it's a long title. What does it mean? Primarily, what I work on is making sure that user interfaces for web and mobile applications are or meet international guidelines, if you will, to ensure that people who use assistive technologies can rely on their assistive technologies to provide them with the proper feedback. And today we've been talking about assistive technologies. The question, though, is not so much assistive technologies as much as how good is the product that we are working with. For example, if we talk about a reporting type of an application such as Excel. Excel right out of the box when it first started was not accessible with any assistive technologies. Throughout the years as it progressed, it has become a very accessible tool. And somebody like me who is totally blind and I use my screen reader on for everything, I'm able to do some really interesting stuff with it. I'm able to do, anywhere from just listing a table to running different graphs and doing different things that will allow me to present information in a visual visual way to make it easier, while also provide it in an alternative way to ensure that it is accessible for everybody. So what we when I first started at Optum or at United Health Group, because I work on the Optum side of the house, the interesting part was that we had some software applications that were not accessible, and our goal was how can we interact with those applications. Since 2017, when I started, we have come a very long way by improving those, whether those applications, they're web-based applications, since many of them are right now, or they're desktop applications, which means they run on Windows or they run on Mac, or they're even mobile applications. Some, as I said, they come out of the box accessible, such as most of Microsoft products, since Microsoft has been really taken a strong approach towards accessibility, or others such as Oracle, and I'm going to pick on Oracle, just because Oracle really has not done much to provide accessibility in its applications. So for example, if you have PeopleSoft and you are in HR and you want your employees to go in and fill out some information about themselves, their timesheets, their paid time off, put all this information in. We have run into a problem with this with PeopleSoft, and it's not accessible to the point that even myself, somebody who is a programmer, I've done back end programming, meaning I've worked on databases, I've done front end programming, I've done both Windows and web user interfaces. I still could not. Sorry about that. My other computer is talking. I still could not, get my assistive technology to give me enough information so I know where to plug in each hour or the amount of hours that I worked or the amount of hours that I took as paid time off. So we have to find alternatives because you can't take a system like this. It's a massive system. The whole organization runs on it. If you want to change it, you're talking millions of dollars. So what would you do? Right now we're addressing this type of issue by figuring out, certain areas where we could reach out to the manufacturer and say, hey, what can you guys do for us? We rely on this. We want to provide this ability to our employees. At the same time, we cannot have employees who are currently employed just be blocked out of entering this information. So we decided that the best way is for them to call in HR and give that information over the phone, and somebody would provide that or would put that information in the system. So this way managers can pull them up and everything is done properly in accordance to company policies. So really the biggest thing that you have to focus on, in my opinion, besides the assistive technologies and what the employees that you have hired can do, is how accessible are your user interfaces? Because that level of accessibility can really set the employee for success or can set the employee for failure. Me trying to have worked, on a few things where there were certain type of employment that the applications just were not a fit for somebody who uses a screen reader. For example, in one situation we had a job description that sounded promising. The employee applied, and he came on board. And then all of a sudden, we found out that he has to work with 25 different applications. He has to move back and forth between those 25 different applications. And also, he has to be on the phone talking to the customer. Personally, I would not want that job. It's just a lot of stress. With my screen reader talking in my ear, I'm listening to the person who's on the other end of the line, and I've got 25 different applications that I need to switch with them or between them. So what ended up happening was we decided, just because those 25 different applications were just so much to go through and evaluate whether their user interfaces are accessible or not, it behooved that individual to move to a different role. And that is sometimes, a fine alternative. And the reason why we end up into that kind of a situation is because all of those applications have been created by developers and programmers who have sight. So when they get tested, even though they go through quality assurance testing, they go through quality assurance testing without assistive technologies. So for example, if I can click on it with a mouse, it's working. They don't test with keyboard. They don't find out whether it's keyboard accessible. So somebody who has a motor disability or who has a visual disability can use the keyboard to navigate from one element or one focusable object to another. They don't run a screen reader to find out how this information is going to be rendered and provided to the user on the other end, so the user can hear it in a way that it makes sense. Many of you don't know this, but HTML, with HTML, it's kind of interesting, and that's where my primary job is. You could put HTML in a page wherever you want, and then with what we call CSS or cascading style sheets, style it to look visually the way you want it to be. So you could have something really at the bottom of the document. So imagine you have a Word document and you have something at the bottom of it, but visually you could move it all the way up to the top. Now to the screen reader, since the screen reader is sort of like a web crawler, if you will, like Google crawls through different web pages and looks for certain text on the pages, the screen reader reads the information from top to bottom in a sequential order. So when it gets to the bottom, it's going to read that information that visually was put up at the top, so people who are sighted can interact with it first. That is primarily my day-to-day job when I'm working with developers and with user experience designers. We call them UX designers for short. How are you designing your user interfaces? How are you making sure this information, when it goes to development, what kind of notes are you providing? When the developers go through it, are we doing enough testing to make sure that the product is accessible? And a lot of websites fail that. And they do fail that not because people don't care, but because there's not enough awareness. So it's very important. I guess I was muted accidentally. Sorry about this. So really the biggest thing at this point is, to make sure that your user interface is accessible, and the employees from there and the assistive technologies can take care of, what they need to do. I would stop here, and I'm going to give it over to Anne so she can, continue with the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, JP, and for everybody who presented. I know there's been a lot of dialogue going in the chat, some questions that have been answered referencing Job Accommodation Network being a great resource, and some like Minnesota Star being a great loan program. We wanted to give you all some time through breakouts to ask some questions directly of our presenters. So I'm going to do my best to quickly give you kind of the how-tos of this process, because we're really excited that everybody participated today, and we would love for you to stay on to have these questions that you have answered more directly in the breakout room. So we have room 1, which is John and Sean for assistive tech. JP and Mitra are in room 2, and Daisha and Marcy are in room 3. So please know that we will open it up in a way that you can join whichever room, and it'll be labeled. It should show up, the 3 rooms. If you don't see it, you go under your More button and click on Breakout Rooms, and you should see each option. You just click join, either 1, 2, or 3. And for those of you who aren't staying on, we just want to thank you today. It's so great to see your interest in technology. We know, as you've seen today, a lot of great experts here, a lot of great resources for you to tap into to make them seem more user-friendly and approachable, because I think that's the biggest thing, and to test some of them out. So feel free to stay in touch with us. I'm going to put in also, before we open breakouts, the email addresses of everybody. All our presenters are willing to be contacted after this event. So I'll have that in there as well. But I'm going to open up the breakout rooms. I'll be here if you have any difficulty. If you need interpreting, stay in the main room and let me know. If you need captioning, let me know, and I can get the captionist in your room too, and we'll give you the link. So I'll give it, we're going to give it maybe 10 minutes, and we'll try to call you back early beforehand, but I'm going to set it for 10 and then we'll call you back by 10:15. Thank you, everybody. We'll open it all up.
Hi, Anne. So both of the people that I was interpreting for have left.
Yep.
So I'm going to do the same.
Okay. Thanks, Steve, for your help today.
Thank you. Happy to see you. Bye.
Good to see you.